1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. רוממו כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. רוממו Torah, 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 Ziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Ziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Ziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Ziva lanu Moshe. Morasha Kehila Yaakov
Tehillat Yaakov, Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe.
Shabbat Shalom, and welcome, and Chag Sameach. So it is, of course, Shabbat, as we know. It is also the holiday of Shavuot, one of those holidays that people are like, what holiday is that? I don't remember that holiday. Well, the problem is there aren't like a lot of home rituals to do except eating cheesecake, so people often, it gets forgotten, and also because it's at the time of year where like religious school's over, so it's kind of the forgotten three, it's the forgotten one of the big three. There were, back in ancient days, 3 big communal festivals that everybody would come, everyone, now this is really ancient, so this is when people all lived, Israelites all lived around the land of Israel, and they would all go to the Jerusalem temple to bring offerings and just kind of gather with people and celebrate. And those big 3 were Sukkot, which used to be one of the biggest festivals ever. It's still big, but it kind of fell a few notches. But Sukkot, really big. The next one, Passover, still big, still kept its centrality. And Shavuot, which unfortunately is fallen a little bit, but we'll learn a little bit more about Shavuot as we go. One thing about Shavuot is it is rooted in agriculture. It was when people would harvest barley, I'm sure harvest other things. Why do we eat dairy on Shavuot? I'm not sure we know exactly why. I assume it's tied to when it was a harvest thing, a farming thing. But since that time, we have layered on to that sense of agriculture and harvest an idea that Shavuot is a time when we remember the story in the Torah of the Israelites gathered around Mount Sinai and something being revealed from God. What was that? There's some debate. Did the Israelites hear like all the 10, as we call them, the 10 commandments? A little more on that later in the service. Did they hear maybe just the first few? Because there's a story in the Torah where everybody starts freaking out and saying, we can't handle this. Like, this is so intense. There is thunder and lightning and drama, and the earth is shaking, and it's like, everyone's like, I think we've had enough of this, Moses. Just get the information. I mean, it literally says this in the story. Just get the information for us and just tell us about it later, because we cannot take this. So maybe they just heard a little bit. There's another tradition that they didn't hear anything really in terms of content, but they felt God's presence. So who knows? But some major experience our people had, that is what has been layered onto this agricultural day of Shavuot. And the eating of the dairy, some people have said, well, it's like they were on their way to the land of Israel, which is like the land of milk and honey, so we should eat sweet things made from milk. Okay, maybe. Some people say, well, Torah this doesn't work for Ashkenazi Jews so well, but the idea is milk is like Torah in that they are both really easy to digest. Doesn't work so well with Ashkenazi Jews. Most of us can't even digest dairy at all, but we'll put that aside because that doesn't make a good Torah story. So who knows? But anyway, that's all part of it. The white, maybe the purity, that's another custom. We have our beautiful white flowers here. So anyway, that's in a nutshell, Shavuot, what we are celebrating tonight, in addition to the Shabbat day. Thank you so much to those of you, first of all, who are here and who have come to celebrate with us. I know this is a long holiday weekend. I know there are many people who are usually here who are off gallivanting about. So I'm glad you took an hour out of your gallivanting and came to celebrate with us. So just take 1 minute and say hi to the people around you. If there's a face maybe you don't know, just say hi and say who you are, introduce yourself, and get to know who's here with us tonight. As some people aren't meeting, I'll say thank you to Andy Sussman and Ruth Pavlo for being here, sharing the beautiful music that makes our service as special as it is. Thank you to Xavier in the back. Thank you to our members who are unable to be here but who are watching from home. And Chag Sameach and Shabbat Shalom to you as well. A short reading for Shavuot is in your Siddur, in your prayer book, on page 389. On the top is Shavuot. Now summer's prospect, the world ripening and growing softer, the promise of harvest fulfilled, the warming sun lies before us. Now the vision of Torah, the world at peace and growing gentler, the promise of goodness fulfilled, the loving heart lies open to the mind. And we begin our Shabbat service, always in our festival service, with the lighting of the candles, our symbol of hope. No matter what is happening in the world, we always retain the hope of those flames. And it's my honor to call up Ann Levinson, who will light our Shabbat candles. We also will add the Yom Tov, because that's what you add to the Shabbat candle blessing for a festival. And that is on page 120.
Asher Kiddushonu Mitzvasav B'tzivonu V'Hadlik Ner Shal Shabbat.
Amen.
Blessed are you, God, source of all life, who brings us holiness through mitzvah and who has given us the mitzvah of lighting the Shabbos candles.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner, shel Shabbat v'shel Yom Tov.
Thank you, Yasher Koach. And because there's always so much going on, I want to also just add something about Memorial Day, which is this weekend, and I'll have a special reading before Kaddish. But just a note about that, Memorial Day was originally known as Decoration Day after the Civil War, to memorialize all those who died during the Civil War. And then, of course, as time went on, the United States, time goes on, the United States is involved in further wars and conflicts and suffered more deaths as a result. So in 1971, Memorial Day became an official national day of remembrance for all men and women who died while serving in the U.S. military. And we will be saying something about that later in the service. We welcome the Shabbat bride into our midst, who is gonna, I guess, match us and be wearing white. Lecha Dodi is her song. Lecha Dodi is on page 138, and we sing the first two verses, and then on the final verse, we rise and face the door and welcome her into our midst for the Shabbat day. Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, B'nai Shabbat nekavela. Lecha lecha dodi likrat kala. B'nai Shabbat nekavela la 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 la. Lecha dodi likrat kala. B'nai Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala. B'nai Shabbat nekavela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad. Ishmianu el ha'meichad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad. L'shem u'tiferet v'mihila la 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 la. Likrat kala. B'nai Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala. B'nai Shabbat nekavela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha. Ki mekor ha'bracha. Merosh mikedem neshucha. Sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila la 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 la. Likrat kala. B'nai Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala. B'nai Shabbat nekavela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala. Gam b'simcha u'tzora. Toch emunei am segula. Boi chala. Boi chala la 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 la. Lecha dodi likrat kala. B'nai Lecha dodi likrat kala. B'nai Shabbat nekavela.
You may be seated. She got to come in to a jazzy little song there. Chatzi Kaddish, page 144. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba.
Amen.
V'alma divrach yurtei v'amlich malchutei. B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael. Bagala, uvizman karib, ve'emeru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach, le'olam olam me'almaya. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach, ve'yitpa'ar ve'yitromam ve'yitnaseh. V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei dekudasha berichu. La'ela min kol berchata, v'shirata, tushbechata, v'nechemata, damiran bi'alma, v'yemeru amen. I think because we don't have the usual number of kids here, we're gonna skip over roll into dark for tonight, because unless you have a bunch of people up here doing the little hand motions, it just, I don't know, doesn't seem right.
You want to do Ahavad Olam by Debbie Friedman?
No, that's the wrong energy. How about top of page 151, because there is something about Torah there, which seems appropriate for Shavuot. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. And Shema, of course, is from the Torah that we celebrate this evening. Shavuot is part of that journey we relive every single year. We start at Pesach, at Passover, when we are released from slavery in Egypt, and we enter as a people who has no idea how to make independent choices or how to really live a life, and just kind of wander in the wilderness for a while. We then, 7 weeks later, celebrate Shavuot, which represents the journey that we have made from a place of oppression and narrowness and feeling as if we don't have the choices we would like to have, to being at Mount Sinai when we receive wisdom. And we receive wisdom and teachings that will help start guiding us to live good, independent lives as a community. And one of those, really one of the bedrocks of what we hear at Mount Sinai the Shema isn't exactly it, but it's the idea. Listen, understand, Israel, that our God is one and oneness. Our God is about uniting all people and helping us to understand that every single person matters and deserves to be respected and valued. So Shema is on page 152, and you may rise. Oh, wait, did I miss Baruch Hu? I missed Baruch Hu. I'm sorry, that's okay. We'll do Shema. It's okay.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
You may be seated. See, when you're juggling Shavuot, Memorial Day, other stuff, Shabbat, other things going on, cheesecake, you forget some prayers. That's all right. Baruch Hu basically just says it's time to pray, so it's time to pray. Okay, we've done it. And we've done Shema, and now we are on to V'ahavta, page 154. And V'ahavta comes right after Shema in Torah and talks about how all the daily things that we do that maybe we think might not matter, do matter, and all the small things we do during the day and the way that we do them are all infused with holiness and love. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol ma'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'aderech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam la'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvihisharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. Ani Adonai Elohechem emet. Mi Chamocha is on your song sheet. This is a version from Michelle Citron. We've done a couple of times. There's a really great energy to it. And Mi Chamocha, of course, also is from Torah. And the exclamation of joy and hopefulness that our people made as they left that place of oppression in Egypt and set out on the journey that would eventually lead them to Shavuot to Sinai and beyond. Mi chamocha.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh norat tehilot, osef peled, norat tehilot, osef peled. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh norat tehilot, osef peled. Norate hilo, osefele. Echo. Malchutecha,
Malchutecha,
Ra'u vanecha, Bokei Hayam,
Bokei Hayam,
Lifno Moshe u'Miriam, Ze'eli,
Ze'eli,
Anu ve'ameru, Adonai, Yimloch le'olam va'ed. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. Malchutecha,
Malchutecha,
Ra'u vanecha, Bokei Hayam,
Bokei Hayam,
Lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, Ze'eli,
Ze'eli,
Anu ve'ameru, Adonai, Yimloch le'olam va'ed. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh norat tehilot, osef peled, norat tehilot, osef peled. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai.
I like that version.
Thank you, Rabbi. That's a nice one.
Michamocha should be joyful because it's like, this is what they exclaimed and danced with tambourines when they got out of Egypt. And then when I grew up, we would sing, Michamocha. I'm like, weren't they a little more excited than that? That doesn't sound very excited. Like, they really, that's what they did. They were like, we're free and we have tambourines. Maybe they were depressed. I don't know, but let's not be depressed for them. Vashamru. Okay, so you guys are going to have, Matthew, I will not make you come up here by yourself. That is my gift to you tonight. He's like, thank God. No, but Vashamru still needs to be, I'll do it, I can do it with my one arm. Brooke, you should come up and help me. Yeah, come on up and help me. Are you a high school graduate yet? Okay, 1 week shy. Come on up. Come on up. Mazel tov on your... Matthew can help Brooke if he wants, but he doesn't have to. But, okay.
Lauren,
well,
are you and the rabbi
yeah,
twins
Lauren,
tonight?
between the two of us, we have two arms. So this is the joy of dog ownership, by the way, both of us, matching, both of our dog-related arm injuries. But we love them anyway, sort
I
of.
saw you on the Misha Beirach list. I didn't know what happened.
So I'll do one hand, you can do two hands. Okay, so what is Vashamru? Vashamru, also from Torah. It is on page 162. And it is a declaration that this Shabbat day is a sign of the loving relationship between God and the Jewish people. So we have to do a little dancing to that. We are leading, which means you're following. So get up and move around.
Veshamru v'nei Yisrael ha-Shabbat Masoret ha-Shabbat le'dorotam b'ri'olam Veshamru v'nei Yisrael ha-Shabbat אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Thank you, Brooke, for sharing your high school graduate skills with us in that song. And we move on to the central part of our worship service, which is the tefillah, and it begins on page 164, and you may rise. Oh, is it on the song sheet? I think this one's on the song sheet.
Song sheet.
Yes, song sheet.
Adonai, Sifatai Tifta. Fiagi, Tehilatecha. Adonai, Sifatai Tifta. Fiagi, Tehilatecha. Open up our lips so we may praise your name. Open up our hearts so we may feel our pain. Open up our souls to let our love make us whole. And we will praise your name. Adonai, Sifatai Tifta. Fiagi, Tehilatecha.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibur v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Gula Levanei V'Nehem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, V'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol Atarav Lehoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayeh HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofech Olim, givurot umido melach melech me'midu mechayeh umatzmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman ata l'chayot hakol baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hakol Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh ukadoshim b'chol yom yahalucha selah baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. We continue silently, either with the prayers in our siddur or the reflections of our hearts, and we continue either standing or sitting. Shalom Rav is on page 178.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. 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 Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim
And that especially goes out to our birthday girl, Fran Kraft, because I know you guys like Shalom Rav. We are grateful for the gift of healing, and we have a number of people in need of healing within our community, friends, loved ones, and even those around the world, whether it be emotional, physical, spiritual. Our prayers go out to all of them and hope that they feel that important gift of healing in whatever way they feel they need to be more whole. On this Shabbat, we especially send our prayers to David Appel, Carolyn Bouchard, Ethan Campbell, Yanko Ben Chana, Nicole Dubin, Daniel Urchik, Mordechai ben Sarafega, Roisa bat Shmuel v'bat Sheva, Tracy Janetta, Julian Kaner, Ellen Kaplan, Erwin Kostrinsky, Marion Kostrinsky, Shelley Lehner, Michelle Lasanti, Nancy Marcus, Arnold Reamer, Sheila Rosenberg, Rosalie Saltiel, Louise Samuels, Maxine Shapiro, Bobby Sherman-Gieshin, Herman Spring, Andrea Teeple, Carla Teisch, Katie Weinstock, Lori Weinstock, and Batsheva. Are there others we wish to think of? We join together in our traditional prayer for healing, which is Misha Berach, and it can be found on your song sheet.
Misha Berach Avoteinu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Hu Yavarech, Virapeh et HaCholim. Misha Berach Avoteinu, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah, Hu yavarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. Elna refana la, Elna refana la, Elna refana la, Elna refana la. Misha Berach Avoteinu Avraham Yitzchak veYaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah, Hu yavarech v'yirapeh et hacholim.
Does everyone, I had some out front, does everybody have, or how about this? Does anyone need, that's a better question, does anyone need a 10 Commandments sheet, or is everybody okay? Okay. Matthew, I have a job for you. Here, hand these out to anyone with their hand raised. Thank you. So raise your hand if Matthew can get you a sheet. So Shavuot is about Exodus, the book of Exodus, chapter 20. And what is always very confusing is that Shavuot is about God's giving of the Torah, is what the traditional, I guess, explanation in a sentence is of, I think there's just, is there just enough? We may, Sharing of resources. We're being environmentally responsible. Does anyone, okay. Do you guys not have it all? Okay, someone needs to share. Oh, there you go. Okay. Wait, so Matthew? This is resource allocation. Mitch, there's another. Oh, okay. Okay, I think we got that settled. So, always a confusing thing because Shavuot is traditionally the holiday where we remember the giving of Torah at Mount Sinai. And if you look at chapter 20, and if you just read around this chapter, you might say, wait, giving of the Torah at Sinai. First of all, isn't that story in Torah? So that logically makes my head explode, because how can you give Torah when this is the second book of 5 books of the Torah that it's happening in? That makes no sense. That's very true. There is a rabbinic statement to get around all of those situations that says, Ein mukdam ve'ein me'uchar b'Torah. What that means is there's no early and there's no late in the Torah. Like, don't worry about that. Don't worry about the timing of things. It doesn't matter. I always love that. It's like, that covers a lot of logical problems. So clearly Torah's not given because Torah's not even written yet. 2, there is nothing that says like this whole scroll is sort of presented. It's really just these 10 statements. And I say 10 statements because they're not the 10 commandments. There's nothing in the Torah, nothing calls them the 10 commandments. I don't know the history of why we call them the 10 commandments, but that's never said. They're the 10, depends how everything's translation, the 10 utterances, the 10 statements, the 10 declarations. All of those are good translations, but it certainly never says mitzvot in there. So all of that is very confusing, and let's just accept that it's confusing because, of course, we got these 10 statements, and that's what we got, yet we say that the Torah was given at Sinai. So let's just accept, you know, like there's movies that like you're watching and you're like, this makes no sense, and the person with you is like, just go with it, just accept it. And I'm always the person that's like, this makes no sense, but don't worry about it, just go with it, just go with it. Okay, so here we have these 10 statements. That is what is given at Sinai according to the story in the Torah. There's another kind of question that comes up, which is like, okay, if there's all these different like guidelines we're supposed to follow as Jews, you know, what, are there just 10? Or like, are these the more important ones? Or all the others not that important? Like, what's the deal with that? That's always very confusing. I heard a teacher say, and I love this, that it's not that these 10 are more important, but perhaps these 10 are the most central to who we are. And I don't know, I like that. So that makes sense to me, that these are really central ideas in Judaism, not that other things we have to do aren't important. Then I want to just point out a few things that I think are really interesting about these. You know, some bimas, obviously all of you have been to other synagogues, you know, some of them actually have like a drawing of the tablets. I mean, I assume that's, I don't know how we know that's exactly what they look like, but whatever. You know, looking at the tablets like they look that Charlton Heston brought down, so that's just as good as in the actual Torah. And, you know, usually it's, you see like 10 little lines, or sometimes it's the first word of each one or whatever. And, you know, you see that a lot in synagogues. It's pretty central. So what's kind of maybe interesting about them that you might not notice, especially if you're not looking at the Hebrew? Okay, one thing that's really interesting is that so much of Torah is sort of God addressing, maybe not directly, but through Moses, God is addressing the whole. A lot of Torah is about what are we as a community of people requested to do, required to do, asked to do, whatever. These are not written that way. These are actually written to each individual person. They're in the singular. And that's just interesting. I'm not saying I know why, but it's just something, it's an observation that I think is really interesting. That much of what we receive as Jews is to say, you as a society, you as a community, this is what your responsibility is to each individual member of within your community. This is actually to individual people. It's not the only place that's to individual people. It just doesn't happen all the time. And I want to point out something that I'm not going to have a whole discussion over because it's potentially interesting, potentially not. But if you look, how I've numbered these on your sheet is I've numbered them just by what verse they are in Exodus chapter 20. So I've just labeled them by, this is verse 1, this is verse 2, this is verse 3. That's not necessarily how we, well, it isn't. It isn't how we actually number what are the 10. But that is a question that comes up, and in case you're not aware of that, that's important to know because it does come up in our society. It comes up in governments, in legal issues, church and state issues. It's kind of interesting because how do we number these? I mean, it's subjective. We don't divide them up into verses. They're kind of clumped together. And how Jews clump them together is not exactly the same way that Christians clump them together. So that's just a little interesting note because sometimes, I haven't heard this lately because we have a lot of other stuff we're dealing with as a society, but in the past there have been times where this big legal case comes up and it's always surfacing in places. Should we put the 10 Commandments, as we call them, in a public space? Should we put it in a public courtroom? Should we put it in City Hall? And part of the problem that's discussed is whose 10 Commandments? Does it really matter? I don't know. It doesn't matter to me that much, but Christians might say, well, this is commandment number 1 and this is number 2, and Jews are like, no, we think this is number 1 and this is number 2. So I bring that up because it's important to know that's something you see in the news sometimes about those differences in how we number them, but I'm not going to discuss that. But you can see in the first verses, it says, I'm God, I'm Adonai, I Adonai am your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. Okay, is that like a commandment? I mean, they're not commandments anyway, right? They're statements. But is there anything to be done? You usually think of the 10 Commandments as like, do this, don't do that. Well, this doesn't really qualify. It's just like, hi, I'm your pilot. I'm flying you to Tucson today. It's just like, hi, here's who I am, and this is how you know me. Okay, why is that there? I would like to by the way, so this is a little bit of a commercial, because tomorrow at 9 a.m., before Yisker, which is at 10 a.m. here, we're going to have Torah discussion, and what I'd like to do is have a little more discussion around these. So if you want to talk about this a little bit more, 9 a.m. on Zoom. You don't even have to get dressed. Just pajamas, cup of coffee, it's fine. So why does it start with that? Some people might say, well, I'm God who brought you out of Egypt, so you owe me. I mean, it could be interpreted that way, right? It's like, hi, I'm about to tell you things. Remember, I'm the one who bailed you out of jail when you were in trouble, whatever. Like, it definitely starts like, hey, remember that huge favor I did for you? Hey, here's some stuff you need to do. Okay, maybe that's why. Maybe that's why God is saying that. Maybe it's like, I have authority to tell you what to do because I did you a favor. That's possible. It's not the only possibility. Another possibility is, perhaps I'm God who brought you out of oppression. Maybe the statement is saying, the way you know me is as the being who cares about people who are on the lowest rung of the ladder. I mean, Israelites were slaves. They were the bottom of the barrel in that society. They didn't even have human rights. I'm God who cared about you. You were oppressed, you were enslaved, you were the lowest of the low, and I cared about you and I did something about it. So maybe God is saying, this is the main value of the being who is about to provide leadership to you. This is a being who cares about the oppressed, who cares about people who are on the bottom of the social ladder. That's who I am, and now I'm about to give you guidance to help you be like that too. I'm sure there's many other things you could take from that verse, but I just kind of like to say, who knows? They both could be true. Doesn't have to be either or, but they're both kind of nice. I just want to say there's endless amounts of things we could say about this, but there's just two other points I want to make now. And one is about verse 4. So remember, that's not commandment 4, that's just verse 4 in chapter 20. You can see on your sheet, you shall not make for yourself a sculptured image or any likeness of what is in the heavens above or on the earth below or in the waters under the earth. Then it goes on to say, you shall not bow down to those things. So first of all, don't make a sculptured image, and then it goes on to say, you shall not bow down to them or serve them. And then it goes on. And you might look at verse 4 and say, oh, we're not supposed to do any art at all. We can't make anything that looks like a thing that exists in the world. But I don't think anybody takes that from it. I don't think there's any religion that takes that. Certainly Jews don't take that. We certainly are allowed to have art. We're allowed to make sculpture. We're allowed to make pictures and art. We associate it with the verse that comes after, which talks about bowing down to them or serving them. So in other words, of course you can make likenesses of nature, but not to the point where you are worshiping them. And that's obviously important. So why? Why is that? Also, different possibilities. It does go on to say, I, your God, am an impassioned God. Maybe God is saying, that's going to lead you away from worshiping me. And that's certainly something we see in the Torah over and over and over, so that's probably part of it. That God is saying, it's important you worship me and not anything else. But another interpretation I heard that I think is really interesting is that in Torah and later in the Bible, God is known by different names. God doesn't have just one name. There's like different names, and maybe they represent different ways that we might relate to whatever God is, which everyone here, I'm sure, has a very different and individual idea of what that word even means, which is fine. But God, at one point, when talking with Moses, and Moses is like, who are you? Like, what is your name? I need to get a better sense of what you are. And God says, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, which means I will, well, it can be interpreted different ways, but one way is I will be what I will be, or maybe I will become what I will become, or, it's just a cool name for God, because it's very much like, I can't be really pinned down. Like, I am going to be something different in the future. I am something that's evolving and changing, and perhaps one thing this verse does is say, don't worship something that's like a fixed sculpture, because God is always evolving. If you set God as like, well, God is just this thing and it's written in stone and done, that's not what God is about. God is about different things to different people, different ideas to different people, even differences in our own lives. I mean, what I thought about God when I was 10 is not what I thought about God when I was 25, is not what I think about God now, is not what I'll think about God when I'm, 90. I mean, even our own ideas about God evolve and change over time. So I really like that aspect of what it means to don't make God into a sculptured image. Remain open, remain open-minded. What God is, how God acts in the world will unfold. So more on this, 9 a.m. tomorrow on Zoom.
Back to
Yisrael, Yisrael, ve'araita charu. Yisrael, Yisrael, ve'araita charu. Torah, ora, Torah, ora, hallelujah. Torah, ora, Torah, ora, hallelujah. Yisrael, Yisrael, ve'araita charu. Yisrael, Yisrael, ve'araita charu. Torah, ora, Torah, ora, hallelujah. Torah, ora, Torah, ora, hallelujah.
We call upon birthday girl and duty trustee, Fran Kraft, to give us some announcements. It's right there for you. It is.
Shalom, everyone. Nice to see such a nice crowd, and hello to all of you who are streaming. Shabbat Shalom. This was Matthew's birthday present to me. It wasn't supposed to be, but here I am. I want to thank Rabbi for a beautiful sermon on the 10 whatever statements.
Whatever they are.
Yeah, right. And Andy for his wonderful singing, and Ruth for her accompaniment. And hello, Xavier. Thank you to all those people who are streaming. Okay, tomorrow at 9 a.m. is Taurus discussion. 10 a.m. will be the Yiska service. Is that going to be here?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Monday, TBO is closed. The ECC is closed, so there's no Mahjong. But Wednesday, there will be canasta. So if you're interested, and Taurus study on Tuesday?
Tanakh, yeah.
Tanakh.
Oh, I don't know what we're going to read. We finished Book of Ruth in record time.
We finished the Book of Ruth, so I don't know where we're going next, but it's all very interesting. June 3rd is the Adult B'no Mitzvah service, and two of our B'not Mitzvah are here. And if you would like to come to that service, they would like you to RSVP to the office. I'm afraid I can't be here. I'm going to watch you. I'm going to stream it. June 9th is our Maccabee graduation. Eileen Finkelstone has run the Maccabee class for years now, so come and celebrate their graduation. June 10th is the bar mitzvah of Seth Goldberg, and June 10th at night is the Havdalah dinner. If you haven't made your reservations, I believe it's $25 a person. There's going to be food and singing. This is the culmination of our 50th anniversary year. This is the 50th anniversary of TBO. And I haven't been here for the whole 50 years, but almost, okay? So Shabbat Shalom, and thank you. Thank you. What?
Book Club Sunday.
Book Club on Sunday. The book is Wish You Were Here, and that's on Zoom. So look on your Monday events. It's there.
Thank you. And we have, thank you. And we have dairy. I know we have cheesecake back there for Shavuot after the service. We have milk chocolate, because it's, sort of milk. And some other goodies that Larissa has put together, so hang around for that. Okay, so it is my honor to call up Marian Kostrinsky to open our Ark for Aleinu. Aleinu is on page 586, and you may rise.
לשבח, לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהן, וגורלנו ככל המונם. אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Yasher Koach, thank you. And you may be seated. So this is Memorial Day weekend. And to explain what I'm about to read, across northern France and Flanders, which is northern Belgium, the brutal clashes between Allied and Central powers, the soldiers tore up fields and forests, tore up trees and plants, and wreaked havoc on the soil beneath. But in the warm early spring of 1915, bright red flowers began peeking through the battle-scarred land, the poppy. Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae, a Canadian brigade surgeon, spotted a cluster of poppies that spring. McCrae had tended to the wounded and got a first-hand look at the carnage of the clash in Flanders, in which the Germans unleashed lethal chlorine gas for the first time in the war. Some 87,000 Allied soldiers were killed, wounded, or went missing in the battle. Lieutenant Colonel McCrae wrote a poem called In Flanders Field. The poem and the symbol of the poppy have become strongly associated with the ravages of war and Memorial Day. In Flanders fields, the poppies blow between the crosses row by row that mark our place. And in the sky, the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard among the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands, we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high, if ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. We remember on this Shabbat all those who died in service to their country. During their time of Shloshim, we remember our longtime member, Toby Hart, and Rabbi Chaim Horowitz, uncle of Irving Horowitz. And those whose yahrzeits fall this week, Dorothy Averbach, Harry Berkovich, Anne Blum, Ida Esther Deutsch, Henry Farbman, Harriet Feinberg, Lila Foreman, Fanny Funk, Irving Goldfaden, Babette Goodman, Len Hirschfeld, Martin Kaminsky, Julius Kassoff, Sam Kessler, Barbara Kraus, Ruth Lawrence, Rachel Meller, Ernest Melman, Catherine Moulton, Donna Robbins, Boris Stillman, Ann Tannhauser, Scott White, Julia Ann Zacher. Others we wish to remember at this time. We honor all of their memories as we join in Kaddish on page 598, and please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'alma divrach l'rutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'gala uvizman kariv v'yimru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach la'alam olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemed kudsha berichu. La'ela min kol berchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechemata. Damiran bi'alma v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen. V'imru, v'imru, v'imru. Amen. V'imru, v'imru, v'imru. Amen. You may be seated. We move from our sacred prayer of memory to the joy of Shabbat and the joy of Shavuot with Kiddush and Motzi. I'd like to call up Sandy Lobel and Jim Marsh to lead us. And I have a Post-it note, please remove plastic bag. So and it's tied. I'll let you, so it's untouched by human hands except for whoever put it in the bag. And there you go. And here's all this. Everything's labeled. Do you want to share or?
This is fine.
Okay, and we'll join with you. So Kiddush is on page 123.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh bereshit ki hu yom tehillah lemikra'e kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim ki banu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha v'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
I want wine.
Who's going to drive it home?
Need designated driver for a sip of Night Shabbat.
Motzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our prayer is joyfully said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
And as they munch on raisin challah, special raisin challah, we will conclude with a wonderful Torah song called Sweet as Honey, and it is on your song sheet.
Sweet as honey, sweet as honey, sweet as honey on our tongue. Sweet as honey, sweet as honey, sweet as honey on our tongue. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah, la'asok b'divrei Torah. Your turn. Sweet as honey, sweet as honey, sweet as honey on our tongue. Sweet as honey, sweet as honey, sweet as honey on our tongue. Let us soak it up, let it all sink in. Sweet words of
Torah, sweet
let us soak it up, let it all sink in. Sweet words of Torah, sweet as honey, sweet as honey on our tongue.
Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach.